So the advantages of a special education school specifically for students with autism is that, number one, it's a specialty school. Every person that works there is trained to work with and educate students with autism. There is a common mission, there are core values, and everyone uses the same approach and the same language. So whether students attend day school or they attend day and residential school, there is a coordination of efforts and a coordination of approach. The other thing is that the staff has the ability to collaborate and to communicate so that we're not just building little silos across the way, but we're really putting the whole puzzle together. So again, that's a decision that isn't made lightly. Here in Massachusetts, we have a mandate where children are to be educated in the least restrictive environment. So that's where they start. And what I say sort of affectionately is that children with autism that end up in a residential school or a day school, they need to fail forward. That it's clear when they're not making effective progress, that's when it's time to take a look at another approach and another setting. Well, first and foremost, it should look like a typical school. I mean, you should see kids engaged, teachers engaged with kiddos. There should be a lot of opportunities for learning. There's a lot of visuals. People are using technology. Kiddos are using maybe individual technology. Teachers are using all the latest tools. And, you just know when you walk into a school if it has a soul and if it has a heart. That's what you're looking for, because even when, as an educator, when we hire teachers, oftentimes when they're brand new, if they don't have the skill set, I'm not so upset about that because I know that we can teach that, but I can't really teach passion and heart, and you know it when you see it. And when I was choosing schools for my son, I never worried so much about what the credentials or what the licensure, what that was. What was important to me was that I could establish a bond and a relationship on behalf of my son. That teachers see parents as partners, not as enemies, not as, okay, you stand at the door, Mom, we got him now, and just come and get him at the end of the day. That's really not serving anybody, because autism, as you know, is not just a school-based diagnosis. If you have autism at 9 o'clock in the morning, I guarantee you're going to have autism at 9 o'clock at night. So if there's some magic that an autism guru at a school has discovered during the day, and they're not training you in it, and they're not sharing it with you, then what are they really doing? I mean, isn't education a lifelong venture? And I don't know about you, but some of my greatest lessons haven't necessarily come when I was sitting behind a desk and somebody was lecturing to me. So the main focus of a special education school, first and foremost, should be to educate every child and to be able to know the child not just as a learner, but know the child as a person. You want to choose a school that has both competence, compassion, has a heart, and has a soul. You want a school that has a mission, that has core values, and that educates parents as well as children. Children with autism, it's not just a school-based diagnosis. I mean, autism, if you have autism at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're going to have it at 9 o'clock at night as well. So if you find a fabulous school with autism gurus and they work with your child and your child does well, but they don't include parents and they don't train you, then your child is getting an incomplete education. The other thing is that I think children with autism thrive with a holistic approach. That they need art, they need music, they need physical education, they need socialization, they need well-rounded cultural experiences so that they truly get a strength-based approach. You know, some students who are minimally verbal turn out to be fabulous musicians, fabulous artists, maybe great gymnasts, but if you don't expose kids and if you don't believe that every child is a treasure and every child has a strength and it's your job as an educator to unpack that and find that, then you're not going to find it. So again, you never say never, and I think schools that do a good job are schools that truly understand the ages and stages of children and childhood. I mean, what works and what a youngster needs at 6 is very different than what a youngster needs at 16. So how students qualify for a special education school is a process. In Massachusetts, the law requires that we try to educate students in the least restrictive environment. And some of our youngsters in public schools with minimal support, a little bit more support, they do very well. But there are other students that don't survive and don't thrive. They need a different approach. So what happens, I'd like to say, is that students almost have to fail forward. They have to outgrow the program that they're in. And you know, sometimes with our youngsters with autism, especially if they don't have words to tell you that, they're going to show it to you. They're going to show it to you in a lot of different ways, challenging ways, behavior ways. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to behavior as a tool of communication, not just someone having a bad day. You want to look for patterns to that so that you can make the interventions that are appropriate. Well, here in the state of Massachusetts, special education students are entitled to services up to their 22nd birthday, unless they receive a high school diploma at 18. So as I said, autism is a lifelong way of being. So I think it's very important for our youngsters to get a vocational training. Thinking about that begins at an early age. You need to start thinking about transition as early as 14. You need to start exploring what your child has for strengths, what are their interests, and developing those things. At Boston Higashi School, part of our process is what we call our emergence program, and that's for students who are probably 19 through 22, and they spend their day in academic classes for the morning, and then in the afternoon, they're all at various job sites. Volunteer, some are paid, whatever, and they're out in the community with job coaches exploring. You can't just sit and think about the now. As moms and as educators for children with autism, you have to be thinking about the next. What's next? What's next? And sometimes for parents, that's challenging to do because they get very comfortable with the now, and people can be stymied and quite scared about the next. But I do believe that it's time to grow and cultivate adult services for children and young adults with autism. You know, adult services is a changing world. Years ago, people didn't talk about adult services for persons with autism. But now, I don't know an adult service agency who doesn't work with adults on the spectrum. Truly, if they want to stay in business, they need to. We have a lot of people on this planet with the diagnosis of autism. So, I mean, the thing we want is a quality life. What's a quality life? I mean, you want to think about that. I mean, I always tell a story about one of the job sites that Boston Higashi School had was an auto detailing place. Now, it's pretty counterintuitive. It's messy and it's noisy. So one might think that, that's really not going to work out for kids with autism who have sensory issues that they're worried about. Well, the 7 students that we sent over there thrived. They absolutely loved it. And 2 of those students, that was their passion. Another opportunity that we offered one of our students was to work with a company a big company that had stores both in Japan and in the United States, a store, and they worked in the stock room, and they learned inventory, and they learned all the beings of what it means to be in retail. When that student graduated, that student came from New York, and that student got a job, and that student got paid employment. So again, what's a successful life for any adult? You want to be gainfully employed. You want to find work with meaning and purpose. Why wouldn't you expect that for persons with autism? The key is to not give up and to explore and find some options and provide support.